What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about purchasing a VA foreclosure. I'm going to walk you guys through that process. I'm going to talk about the Vendee Loan Program, how to actually search for these properties, and you might be surprised at some of the benefits of this Vendee Loan Program. Because to me, there are definitely some benefits to that program, especially if you are an investor and a veteran, because using this program doesn't count against your VA home loan eligibility. So let's just go right into it. My name is David Piatek. I am a loan officer and able to help you utilize that amazing VA home loan. You can schedule a call with me down in the description below. So let me pull the first thing up from the VA's website. And I'm also going to share this, by the way, in the description so you guys could see it. So the VA Vendee Loan Program offers qualified borrowers the option to purchase VA real estate owned properties with little to no money down, which is true. The program is available to veterans, non-veterans, owner-occupied, and investors, which is a pretty big deal, I would say. And they do offer pretty small down payments on investment properties, which could be a way for you to get into owning more investment properties. So some quick things on this. So financing little to no money down, origination and funding fees may be rolled into the loan for qualified borrowers. They do offer 15 and 30-year loan options, competitive rates. Seller may contribute towards closing costs. Now, what I want you to understand with this program is that the Vendee Loan Program is seller financing. The seller is the VA, which I think is pretty interesting. So it's a program that's slightly like the VA home loan, but open to everybody. In some ways, it's better than the VA loan. In other ways, it's not. And I'm going to pull up like my cheat sheet of a whole bunch of stuff that I took notes on. But when I call this mortgage company to go over how the program it works itself. Another cool part: no appraisal required. That's a bonus. But we're gonna go over like all the no prepayment penalties, which is great, and no private mortgage insurance, even when you do no money down, which is another big advantage of this program. So in a nutshell, this is from the VA's website, and then once you click into down here below to the actual servicer, it takes you to here. So the VRM Mortgage Services. Now, there's two different parts to this. There's VRM Mortgage Services, which has all the properties in it. And then you have VRM Lending that actually is, I believe, the only company, mortgage company that does these programs. So with these, I wouldn't be able to help you. But if you're looking for other, like your regular VA home loan, happy to assist you throughout that process. Okay. So here you're going to type in the property, and then it's going to come up with different properties wherever you're located. So what I did is I went, because the website's somewhat slow, so I did this ahead of time. So I went to Illinois, okay? So at the time of this video, there was 38 properties listed for sale, and this is how you search for them. Now, you want to go back to this every week or so because these properties get updated on how they reflect. So you're going to notice that on this property here, right, it shows the Vendee logo, and that's what you're looking for. So for this Vendee program, it's properties that qualify for it will have this little bit of logo. When you click on that property, right, you'll still have the Vendee logo here. But what you have to be careful of is purchaser type eligibility is investor, right? And that's something to important because you can't buy this as an owner-occupied property. Just look at the condition of the property that we're scrolling through. This is, and the reason why they do it, they'll say owner-occupied or investor or just investor alone based on the condition of the property. So if the property is move-in ready, then you're able to utilize that. Now, when you click, now if you guys have questions, make sure you drop them down in the comment section. Happy to answer them for you. And let me know if you've been thinking about actually using one of these programs before, finding some of these, because it's a good way to get into that market. And then when I go down to this part, this kind of takes you to that program, right, which is the VRM Mortgage or Lending LLC, and then they're going to break down here the Vendee Loan Program itself and what you qualify for. So with that being said, let me pull up my cheat sheet. Don't get ahead of me because this is like a Word document that I just went off of to be able to use to walk you guys through this process. So Let me break it down one by one based on what was given to me. All right. So, again, major things to cover. It's available for owner occupied and non owner occupied folks, so investors can purchase this. Now, make sure you listen to the whole thing because there's a lot of caveats to this you need to understand. It's only available to U.S. citizens and permanent residents, aliens. It is property specific, so property must be vendee eligible and meet occupancy eligibility. So, like that website I showed you, if the property is available for the vendee program, then if it's owner occupied, then you have to owner occupy the property. If it's an investor, then it meets a investor eligibility, which has a whole separate criteria, which we're going to go over a little bit lower. The 100% financing, or up to 100% financing, what that means is that the properties, and I'm going to use easy numbers for myself and for us. So let's say you buy a property and it's for $100,000 list price, okay, on the system. It has the vendee and it says owner occupied on there. If you bid, let's say it's super competitive property at this 100,000 and you bid 120. Well, you would have to pay, according to them, $20,000 because anything over that list price that they have listed is what the down payment requirement is for. If you underbid, let's say you go under the list price that they have, then you don't have to pay anything. You can go up to the 100% financing. That same principle applies to investment properties. So again, they allow you, let's say in the same scenario, $100,000 purchase, you could do technically a 5% down payment, do $5,000 down, buy it for $95,000. But let's say it's super competitive. You bid, $120,000. In this case, you'd have to bid as an investment property. You have to put down $125,000. So that's how they view it. Now, alternatively, if you wanted to come in and use your VA loan, do a renovation loan, providing you could do it on the property, or use a regular VA loan, you can do that. But then you would lock in your entitlement. This kind of gives you an out on that. VA funding fee. I found this super interesting, by the way, with the VA funding fee. So 2.25% VA funding fee can be rolled into the loan. But this is the crazy part. If you're a veteran not using a VA loan, this Vendee program, and you have a 10% or greater disability rating, you don't pay the VA funding fee even on investment properties. That's pretty huge. 1.5% origination fee, they charge that. Technically, there's no minimum credit score, but when I talked to them about this, they definitely were very adamant about, like, you do have to have a good credit history. So an example that they used was like, yeah, someone may have a lower credit score. That's maybe because they don't have the depth of credit. But if they have derogatory credit, they're very strict on that. They also mentioned a pretty strict debt to income ratio of 41%. That's pretty tight. So they do see a lot of people get denied for these programs because of that. So that's why it's so important to be in a good financial position. No private mortgage insurance. That's huge, especially with investment properties. Low down payment. You make sure you know what you're doing. No lender title policy required. Interesting. Appraisal is optional. Also very interesting. Better than a VA loan. And then you have a 15 or 30-year option. Community guidelines. We talked about that before. Fixed same interest rate across the board for all program participants, which is nice. So that means like investment and primary have the same rates. That's also very good. No high cost mortgages allowed. Essentially what that means is like low loan amounts because they have the same closing costs as, I'll give you an example. A $50,000 purchase may have the same closing costs as a $200,000 purchase, right? Because of title fees and all that. So then it might bump up that $50,000 in closing costs, maybe just considered too high, and that's what's considered a high cost mortgage. And there's also seller credits are possible. So meaning the VA will give you credits to buy this property, which I think is interesting in itself. All right, now let's go over the investment component. Now this part is a bit technical, and you do want to pay attention to the whole thing. So investors must close in individual name and remain throughout ownership, meaning that you can't move it into an LLC or anything else. Investors must hold the property minimum of 18 months before disposing of it. That's pretty interesting. You don't have that on a VA loan. Technically, there's no time limit on being in that. Vendees does not permit short-term rentals or fix and flips. Now, with those two things being said, I'm sure there's a caveat if in the event life changes or there may be some kind of penalty you have to pay if that happens. You need to look at it. This next section is where a lot of people will be disqualified from doing this, and they are very strict on this, okay? Because the VA loan itself has some outs to it, which I'm going to explain, but let's go through what the requirements are and what are some ways to go around it in a way. Investors must have, so if you're buying as an investment, you must have a 2-year rental history of currently owned properties in your name with the 2-year tax return. They verify this, okay? Now let's just talk about this part. Most people, when they have, let's just say you have the 2-year history, you're gonna have to provide tax returns. And what do most people, when I don't think I've seen one tax return where people are like, oh yeah, we don't deduct everything humanly possible on the property. Normally they break even or they go negative, so they have losses on their taxes. And that creates a problem because now you're struggling to qualify for more investment properties, which is a struggle for a lot of folks once you start having investment properties. That's why you go to alternative loan products like debt service coverage ratio loans, or you move into commercial loans, because you just at some point you self-sabotage. Okay, that's the reality of it. That's why you have to be really careful when trying to buy these properties with one of these Vendee programs. You do have to show your tax returns. So if you have losses, that's going to count against your W-2 income. And remember, their DTI requirements are pretty tighter than any loan program really out there, as far as like VA, FHA, and conventional loan programs. Okay. Because they have their own overlay, because it's their own program that they're introducing, and this mortgage company is the one that's basically providing it for the VA. Now, one suggestion that they made was like, look, if you don't have the rental history, find someone that has a rental history, that has 2 years of rental history. Then you can go in together, buy a property, gain that experience, and then start buying properties on your own. But you have to be very careful with your tax returns. But they mentioned that that they have a lot of options for that. Don't tell me okay. Okay, the other parts, you can use investor rental income to offset your mortgage payment, which I think is pretty nice. So that if you have to have 6 months reserves for that property plus 3 months for all additional properties, okay? So that kind of gives you guys in a nutshell what is available to you guys for this Vendee program. I think it's a pretty cool program if you can qualify for it. It might be something you might have to just be on the ball on all the time. I think that if you are retired and you're like, hey, I want to pick up multiple owner-occupied properties, they have these properties throughout the country. So don't disqualify yourself from any of this. Take a look at it. You got questions, you can always reach out to the folks that are on the website. They definitely are knowledgeable from my experience talking to them, right? Being in this business, they were able to answer all my questions. So just make sure that you know you're exactly what you're doing walking into these Vendee programs. So make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe button, share this with another veteran if you found value in the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.